Hi, everybody. So nice to be here tonight. Excited to talk to you a little bit about some money stuff. We're going to keep money top of mind and on the brain. And today, what we're going to cover is the importance of creating smart financial goals and getting a budget to really work for you. Before I get going, I just wanted to kind of share a little bit of a story here. Today, we want you to commit to yourselves and have a financial goal in mind. And we know personal finances are totally just that. They are completely personal. So you need to customize your goals and your plans and everything that you do to work for you. But we also realize that the importance of setting a financial goal for yourself, whether you're in college, getting ready to go to college, just finishing college, whatever, can really set you up for a lifetime of success afterwards. So a few years ago, I had the privilege of listening to Dr. Kevin Kruger speak while at a student affairs administrators in higher education conference. It's called NASPA, I think. Dr. Kruger, he went on to tell a story of his first skydiving experience. So he explicitly broke down the details of his day as he prepared for this big jump. He was extremely nervous. He walked us through the training that he had to do before the jump. He talked about preparing the equipment and also how he had someone else look at his equipment for him. So just as a second set of eyes to make sure everything was okay. And needless to say, those nerves were just kind of eating him up. And he had no idea if what he was doing was the right way, or he knew his life was going to be on the line, right? If he jumped and things didn't work out. So he went on further to tell this story about his instructor who had previously experienced a really scary jump. That skydiver found himself in a harrowing situation when the lines of the main parachute started to twist and it started sending him into this uncontrollable spin as he jumped out. And he was unable to correct the situation, which was really becoming quickly distressful as he's falling to the earth. And he was a very experienced skydiver. And because of that, he had used some quick thinking. And all skydivers, and I didn't know this, but all skydivers make every jump wearing not one, but two parachutes. So there's a main parachute and there's a backup parachute called the reserve parachute. And so today, I guess the parachutes, they feature this like 3-ring release system that really allows for a quick emergency cutaway. And so just before the main parachute was about to completely break down, the skydiver cut it free and he deployed the reserve just in time for landing. Okay. So he said afterwards too, he said under normal circumstances, it's not very difficult to cut away your main parachute. However, he said this was far from a normal situation. Someone else had hooked up half his gear incorrectly and he missed it. So he didn't double check it and he didn't have anybody else double check it. The skydiver had jumped more than 2,000 times before. And he added that, I took my time, and there's a video of him too doing this. He's like, I worked out all the scenarios. Can you imagine doing this as you're just falling towards earth? And then he fixed it just before his time ran out. So it's kind of like getting onto a horse after falling off. The skydiver after that, he actually did 2 more jumps without incident that same day. But he felt obviously a huge sense of relief after surviving that jump that had gone really bad. So I like this story because I feel like the moral of the story is you don't want to spend the rest of your life untangling the parachute. Okay. You want to make sure that someone else set up his gear in this situation and they missed it. It was a huge error, an error which could have literally cost him his life. And so, what I want you to think about today as we're going through this is making a commitment to yourself about, what do you want to achieve financially? So we're going to talk and really hone in on financial success today and financial goals for you today. And some of these things, I think we feel like our financial life can be in tangles, just like this parachute was for the skydiver, right? But half measures are not going to work. You cannot always rely on somebody else to help manage your money. you're going to have to do it yourself. And what we're going to do today is help you set up some solid financial goals and really help you focus on that big thing in life that you want to achieve. So let's start kind of move through the next couple slides and really start thinking about, how can we make this apply directly to you? So this is my alter ego on campus. Sometimes, well, a few years ago, it was more popular. Students would call me Miss Money. And so that's Miss Money on the table here. And she's feeling pretty good right here because she's feeling financially healthy. And when you're financially healthy, it's going to start with you. There's nobody else who's going to make you feel healthy but you. So let's take a minute to just reflect on your own values. So things that are important to you. You first need to know, I guess, what your values are, right? So values, to break it down, are the things that you believe are
Throwback to
important.
when we had a Zoom.
So they're important in the way that you live and work. It's everything that's super important to you. Those are your values, and they should determine your priorities. So deep down, they are probably the measures you use to tell yourself if your life is turning out the way you want it to. We get that feeling, are we on track here? Something's feeling a little shaky. And when things you do and the way you behave match your values, then life is usually feeling, it's pretty good. You're satisfied, you're content. You're like Miss Money here. She's saying, yes, I'm feeling great, right? But when those things don't align with your personal values, that's when we start to feel just wrong. It doesn't feel right anymore. It's wrong. And this can be a real source of unhappiness for a lot of people. This is why making a conscious effort really to identify your values is so, so important. And I know a lot of you are young, but I also know you have values. You have things that are important to you, whether it's I want to go to college, I want to get a great job, I'm going to go to trade school, I want to buy a car. All of those things are fantastic things. But when most values can be summed up into these four categories here. So there's spirituality, financial, physical, and then our relationships. And that could be relationships with family members, relationships with loved ones, right? Relationships with our friends, with our teachers, right? All kinds of relationships. And we can set goals for each one of those categories. And when you're in alignment with all of those categories, guess what? Everything's feeling stable, everything's feeling super steady, right? But what happens if one of those legs is not feeling great anymore? So you're feeling wrong, you're feeling not so good. This is what happens, right? The table is going to fall. Ms. Money is no longer stable here. She's out of control, right? So keep in mind that when you're thinking about where you're at today with your finances and plan where you want to go with it, see how that can impact the rest of your life, right? So if you're feeling a little bit like this tip table and you're losing balance or things are feeling scratchy, as I like to say, then something is totally off and we need to get you back into that alignment. So as you guessed it, we're going to talk a little bit about your money values. So as we dive deeper into our own values, we can really start to identify um, what's working for us, what's important to us. And these money values, guess what? They're just as organic as you are. They are just totally about your personality, your philosophy, the way that you handle things. It's the root of all decisions are going to begin at the core of what you find to be important. And then it branches out into all different areas of your life. Okay. So, what do you know about your personality and your philosophy when it comes to finances? So let's think about that. There's no way around it. The way that you think about money is going to affect all of your financial choices. So we have a kind of a money nature, I like to say. It's a specific way that we individually think about money. So we have driving motivations with our money. Maybe you're the type of person to give back a lot. Maybe you love to help support your family. Maybe you work and you give a little bit of money to your family every month for just things you need. Maybe you love to travel. So COVID has been just a horrible experience for you because you can't go anywhere and you're just like dying to get out and travel some more. Maybe you're a saver, maybe you're a spender, right? So when we face our own challenges and even possibilities with money, we're going to face those challenges and possibilities all the time. So it's important to know, how do you value money? So maybe you've never thought about it before. Um, but if you were to like think about how you're going to pay for school, or how you would buy a car if you wanted one, could you afford to help the family with groceries, those kind of things. So basically, I just want you to take a moment to yourself and answer some of these questions here, and help you identify like what is your money nature. So what's your style? And one way to think of it too is like, what would your friends say about you? Let's say you go to dinner with your friends. What are they going to say about you when it comes to the way you pay for things, or save or spend, right? And a lot of them might just be able to call you out and be like, "Oh yeah, you're a spender, dude. You buy nothing but name brand clothes, or you want to have the best car, or maybe you don't care about that stuff at all." Right. So lots of different styles that you can have here. So what I would like to do, if we have brave enough souls on the line, is I want to hear a little bit from you. And so if you can unmute your line, and no pressure, but it would be more fun if we can share. I would like to know, what was your first money memory? So what's a money memory that you have that is positive, and a money memory that just popped up right now in your head? It could be the first thing that come up, or you can think about something else, but a negative money memory. So I'd love for you to share. I'll just be quiet for a second and see if anybody wants to.
I think one of my first positive money memories was like my first paycheck as a high schooler.
Yeah.
And one of the first negative money memories was taxes on my first paycheck.
Oh my gosh. So I was going to tell you guys this too. That is by far the most popular money memory that students share with me. They always say, "It was my first paycheck. It was so awesome." And then I say, "Okay, what was your negative one?" And they go, "My first paycheck. It sucks. There's so many deductions," right? And so it's so true that we feel like the power of earning. You finally get a paycheck and you're like, "I'm going to go buy all this stuff." And then you're like, "Whoa, that paycheck was not as big as I thought it was going to be." Yeah, so thank you for sharing that. That's great.
I was gonna say too, I think my personal money memory or first positive was I remember I bought my own TV when I was in middle school. And it was
Wow.
based off of just some money that I had. And I had that, I think I still have that TV at home. So that was always, I remember I was like, wow, I bought my first big thing. And
Mhm.
then my first negative money memory was probably, I mean, I forgot about the taxes. I won't steal that one because that was pretty negative. But I remember, and there was a point in college where I had like $0 in my account, and just
Oh,
that feeling that was pretty rough.
that is a rough feeling. I can relate to you on that, because when I was in high school, I overdrafted my account. So for those of you who don't know what that means, I spent more money than what I had in my account, basically. And it was for gas on my car. And it takes a couple days for those things to post on your account. So it looked like I still had money, but really I didn't. And I went and bought something else. And then it all came out at once. And it put me into a negative balance, and I had to pay fees, and it was just a nightmare. And so I can relate to being pretty broke, not having anything in my account for sure. Yeah. So thank you for sharing that.
Oh, I was just gonna say my first positive was when my dad got me my first debit card. So I just
Oh,
felt so official, and I could just ask him like, "Hey, can you put money on my card?" And he would.
oh, that's
Um,
great.
yeah, but I also hated it because my minimum was high, so I always had to ask him, can you put more money, because I would be at the store and I couldn't hit, like I'd be already at my minimum balance, so
Oh,
I
shoot. So
always
you didn't quite
struggled.
have enough to make the purchases you
Yeah.
wanted. And that's a big thing, because I mean, financial freedom is important to so many people. We want to be able to just have that flexibility and freedom to buy what we want to buy when we want to buy it, right? And it doesn't necessarily need to be a huge thing. It just could be going out to dinner with your friends, or buying a pack of gum at the grocery store. We just want to be able to do those things. And it's kind of hard when you're charged with that responsibility. So you had your own debit card, but then you're like, shoot, I keep running out. And now I got to keep asking my dad for help. And so it's sort of a sticky situation. Yeah. But awesome. Thank you for sharing. I'll share mine too, since, we had a couple there, but I remember, and some of you might be able to relate to this, finding money in the gutter when I was a child. And for some females who carry purses, or you have winter coats and you switch them out in the spring, it's fun to find that extra $10 in your pocket from last year, right? Always feels pretty good. But I have a negative money memory of my mom. My dad was sick and he was in the hospital. My mom took us out to Wendy's for lunch because we were in the hospital all day. And we got up to the counter, and what's your favorite thing to order at Wendy's? For me, it's a Frosty, right? And as a kid, a Frosty was like the best thing ever. Well, we get up there and we ordered everything, including Frosties, and my mom reached into her wallet and she didn't have enough money. And that was like before debit cards were really used. So this is like cash. She just didn't have enough. And I remember that like wave of shame that just washed over her face. And you've ever had a decline on a card or anything, it's that pit in your stomach kind of feeling. And that's what she had. And I thought, gosh, I don't ever want to feel that way with money, right? So a lot of the things you were talking about came at fundamental times of your lives, whether it was you were really young and you got your first debit card, or you're a little bit older and, like we said, you earned money, and then you realize that, gosh, all the hard-earned money, half of it, it feels like anyways, goes towards the government and other deductions. And so just thinking about those experiences that you have with money have actually shaped your behaviors with money. And so it's good to be aware of those situations and think about, how was money talked about in the household in which you were raised? Who took care of it? Was it your mom? Was it your dad? Was it somebody else, right? Did they talk to you about it? Did they fight about it? Was it an open conversation? Does money bring you joy, right? So it's all connected into these money values. And I just like to start here because I think it's important for you to evaluate where you're at before you can start establishing future goals, because your values are going to shape the way you achieve those goals, right? So, what we're going to do now, we don't have breakouts. So what we're going to do now is just jump into setting a SMART goal. And I hope that as we're walking through this and you're listening, that you can start taking down some notes and really write a SMART goal for yourself. Because that would be my goal for you all today, is to walk away with something to work towards. So some of you might have heard about SMART goals before in classes already, and this is just a way to help you set a goal that's achievable and it's real and you have a time frame to it and all that good stuff. So we're going to break it down, because SMART is actually just an acronym, and it stands for specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-based. And there's some different variations of this as you learn about it from different teachers, and you see it in different areas. So you've probably heard maybe what the acronym stands for in slightly different meanings. So what we're going to do is just break down each letter and walk through it, and then share an example so you can compare your SMART goal to what is actually a SMART goal. So the first thing is making the goal that you have around your money, around your finances, very specific. So this is the who, what, where, when type of questions. Who is this going to impact? What do you want? Where do you need to be to buy it? When is this going to happen, right? You've got everything kind of lined up for yourself. And the more specific that you can be in setting a goal, it's the better chances that you're going to achieve it and that you're going to hold yourself accountable to it and get it done. So saying, as we go back to that skydiving example from before, if we say, I want to go skydiving someday, doesn't provide as much internal motivation as if you were to say, I'm going to go skydiving next month with my best friend up in Lake Tahoe. I'm going to book it tomorrow, right? That's more specific of a goal. So you're going to include action words. Like I said, I'm going to book it. I'm going to do it this summer. All of those kind of things, and including those action words. So yours could be around savings. Yours could be like, when I go to college, I want to study abroad. Maybe it is, I want to buy a house after I graduate college. We're thinking really big. Or it could simply just be, I want to save $100 this summer from my new job that I got, that I've never worked before, right? So it doesn't have to be super far out either. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about kind of short-term, midterm, and long-term goals. And then the second thing is making sure that it's measurable. So can you evaluate the progress toward achieving your goal? So if you were one of those who's like, I'm getting my first job, I want to save $100. I just need to make sure then, based on how many weeks I have this summer, if I've got 10 weeks, I'm going to save $10 a week, and I'll be able to track my progress towards that goal. So you also want to define what evidence will prove to yourself and others that you're making progress. So in that case, it's pretty easy because you could see your account move up $10 every month. But you want to set metrics or targets. You can track online banking systems to help you keep track, or you can just kind of say frequency. So if your goal is I need a job and I want to go on 3 interviews a month, so you're going to set up 3 interviews per month. That's a measurable goal, because then you can go through and say, how many did I do this month? How many do I need to set up for next month? The next one is attainable. Might also have heard it called actionable. Is your goal reasonable for your abilities and your resources? And how do you know? Right. So if you want to reach a goal, let's say 6 months from now, but your budget dictates, that it's going to take 9 months to get there. Well, then is it time to reevaluate your goal? If you're only earning so much and you have a goal of saving $100, but you're not even going to earn enough to save 100 and cover all of your expenses, then it might be time to change the goal to something else. Maybe you start with $50, right? And so you really have to prioritize what's important as you're, figuring out these goals. And then do you have the skills needed to achieve your goals? So if you're going to go on an interview, do you have the skills to do well in the interview? Do you have the skills to get a good, maybe a resume ready and all of that stuff? So here's an example at the bottom saying, I want to complete a valuable internship that requires a 40-hour weekly commitment, but I start classes 3 weeks before the internship ends, right? So it's like, is that going to work for you, right? You might have to reevaluate that and change the goal. The next one is relevant. So this one's also sometimes called realistic or reasonable. So your goals, you have to find balance. You've got to make sure this is going to work for you. You also want to be a little challenged by the goal. So you have that motivation there to keep working towards it and really get there. But you also need to believe that you can achieve it. You have to believe that you will get to this goal. It's going to be real for you. So that's why, again, we're going to go back to those values and say, is your goal worthwhile? Is it the right time in your life for this kind of goal? Do you need to wait a little bit longer? If you're a freshman in college and you're not working, you might not be ready to buy a house, right? You can't afford it yet. Unless you're just independently wealthy or got some huge inheritance, right? So it might not be the right time for you. So it's not realistic right now. But will this goal meet your needs? And this is where we have long-term needs around what's important to you personally. Where do you want to go to school? When do you want to retire? If we're thinking even further out. So big picture, right? And then also balancing that with what do you have to have now? You got to have a roof over your head. You need clothes to keep you warm and food on the table. So you just have to make sure it's going to meet all of your needs. Okay, and the last letter in the acronym is time-based, also called timely or time-bound. So this is keeping yourself accountable to a specific time frame. We've talked a lot about that 6 months from now, but just want to reiterate here that it's important to be gentle with yourself and honest with yourself about, sometimes we have to rework those time frames. Sometimes, you've got a great job right now and something might happen and now that tomorrow you don't have the job, and you don't want to beat yourself up because you weren't able to save that money this summer. You're going to find something else and that will be your priority first. Here's just putting a time frame to it. So making sure you've got an end, goal to, is it going to take years, months, days, weeks? And again, making sure it's in alignment with what's important to you. So we're going to take a look at an example really quick. And this is just saying, here, one example of a goal might say, I want to buy a car so I don't have to take the bus anymore. So is this a goal? Yes, totally. Is it a SMART goal though? No, it's not, right? Because we're missing some of the elements of that SMART acronym. We're missing the specific stuff, we're missing the measurable and the time-based. So if we were to rewrite the goal again, and we say, I want to buy a used car with all-wheel drive for $3,000 or less in the next 6 months. That is much more specific. It's measurable because we know how much we have to save and by when with the time-based information. And we even got more info here. They want to get a used car that's all-wheel drive, right? So this one now is something that we can say, I can track my progress through my savings account, and I'm going to set up direct deposit. So $300 per biweekly paycheck, which is a lot, but doable if you're working a lot of hours over the summer, maybe. You can save that money for this goal here, right? And then we know that this is going to take place in 6 months. So what we're going to do, we're not going to go into breakouts again, but I asked you to kind of pay attention as we worked through the SMART acronym here. And I would love to hear from a couple of you again, if you want to type it into the chat box or if you want to unmute your lines and share with us a SMART goal that you're thinking about. And if we need to rework it a little bit to help you out, happy to do that, or we'll just kind of talk about what it is that you want to achieve. So keeping in mind that it's specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely or time bound. What are your goals? So anybody like to share?
I can go. I
Thank
actually
you.
do have a kind of SMART goal right now. I'm
Okay.
going to Hawaii in July.
Oh,
So I said
fun.
I will save every paycheck. I put a like a dollar amount that I want to save every paycheck, and I'm trying to get to $1,000
Woohoo! I love
before
it.
July.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
so that's like one of my, and it's really realistic because yeah, I make sure like every paycheck I'm gonna take out this amount of dollars.
Totally. I love that. And it's something that's measurable. You know the amount you have to save. You have a time frame to it. You know where you're going on the trip, right? And I don't know if there's other things you could work into it, like if you've already paid for your flight, or do you need to save extra for that, or pay for food or spending money or lodging and that kind of stuff. So that sounds like a fun goal. I want to go. I am going, actually. I'm going in June. Which island are you going to?
Wow. So my family's from Oahu, so we're going there.
Oh,
Where are
awesome.
you going?
We are going to Kauai.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Exciting.
Can't wait. We booked 10 days, so we definitely had to save some money for that. Yes.
Yeah, us too.
Okay, looks like we got somebody in the chat box that says, I would like to pay off the rest of my credit card debt in the next 6 months. Awesome, amazing. That will free up so much cash for you later on if you can pay down that debt, lose the interest there, and start gaining some interest for yourself in a savings account, right? So, just maybe looking up to see specifically how much do you owe on that credit card debt to determine monthly or weekly, how often could you start paying that down to make it realistic that you would be able to pay it in 6 months, right? And that just takes a little bit of work. So you could just go and look and say, I owe $300 and this is how much I can take from each paycheck and pay it off. And then another little tip of advice for all of you, if any of you are paying credit cards, once you pay it off, take that money that you were paying towards the credit card and either tackle it towards the next debt or put it in your savings account, because you're already used to paying it. So why not pay it to yourself now, right? So I love it. Thank you both for sharing that. That's great. And keep thinking about your SMART goal. If you didn't share, that's okay. Just keep thinking about it as we transition now a little bit into talking about finances, right? So taking what our goals are and now how do we make it a reality when looking at our budgets, and how much that we want to spend. And so then I saw something in here too from Sandra, said saving up for down payment after the credit card is paid off. Yeah, totally. I mean, down payment for a car or a house or whatever, if you just get in that habit of building the savings account, you'll have the freedom to not use the cards anymore, because if you're faced with an emergency or you want to buy something larger, you'll have it already in your savings account, which would be really great. And it would probably feel really great to have that in there. Oh, okay. Hi, Teresa. I got you now. I said Sandra, but it's really Teresa, everybody. So no problem. Thanks for joining. All right, so let's start with talking about a budget, because a lot of people freak out when they say, I don't want to be on a budget. It's like a diet. Nobody wants to be told what you can't have to eat. And a budget feels a little restrictive, like you can't spend money on certain things. That is not what a budget is. A budget is just a strategy for how you want to spend money. So it's basically saying, I'm going to be in control of my money, so my money does not control me. Okay, you're going to tell your dollars where to go. You're going to say, yep, this goes to rent, this goes to food, this goes to going out and entertainment, this is for gifts, right? You're going to just say everywhere you want to go. So all a budget is just a tool to help you keep track of all your money coming in and all the money coming out. So that stuff coming in is called income, and the stuff going out is called expenses. And just like, I guess, kind of like a diet in a way, or just, eating healthy, it's adaptable. You can make it work for you. If you're going to cut out gluten this month, but you realize, hey, gluten doesn't affect me, I can bring it back into my diet, but I am going to cut out sugar, right? It's adaptable. You just change it to work for you. So ways for you to keep track. This is the important part. So if you leave with anything today, I want you to have a goal, and I want you to have something in mind of how you're going to start keeping track of where your money goes. And even if you're not working right now, maybe you get money from your parents. Maybe you get money from the government, right? In the last year, maybe you got some stimulus money, gift money. If you're graduating soon, you might get graduation money, right? You're going to want to find a way to keep track of everything that you're spending. So you could write it down. You could keep your receipts, maybe. You can use Google Sheets or Excel spreadsheets. You could Google like budget worksheets for free, and you're going to see millions of things pop up for free. You can use your bank in some ways. A lot of large banks offer you certain budgeting tools. There's apps like Mint is a great one, or You Need a Budget, or Wally, different ways to help you keep track. Or once you get to a point where you're like, okay, I need somebody to have a second set of eyes, you can work with a financial coach. And that's what I do on campus is I manage a financial wellness program called Nevada Money Mentors. And you do have to be a student with the university in order to use our services, but there are other financial coaches out in the community that you might be able to work with that'll just help you get on track to those financial goals. So lots of different ways that you can do it. I think one of the best ways is to write it down. Just that there's something about like that putting pen to paper forces us to be accountable for where we spent money. And so it's a great way for you to just get an awareness of where your money is going. And that's the first step. The next thing that you might want to look at as you've identified now, this is where I spend my money in these different categories. A lot of students say, how do I know if I'm spending what I should be spending in each category? Am I spending too much on going out to eat? Maybe you're a coffee lover. Maybe you like the Dutch Bros runs or the Starbucks runs, or maybe you're a DoorDash fiend, right? Like, so you get a bunch of Uber Eats and that kind of stuff delivered to your homes. That stuff adds up over time. And I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying make sure you know how much you're spending. And is there a way for you to sort of cut back a little bit to help you achieve those goals you want faster? So basically, there's this general rule by financial specialists that will say, here's a spending plan that's easy to follow. Whatever income you have, you're going to take 50% of that, and it's going to go towards your needs, your fixed items. That's the stuff like rent, food, utilities, transportation, because you can't get to work without transportation. So you have to have that clothing and that kind of stuff. 50% of what you bring in goes towards stuff we have to have. Okay. The next category, 30%, is going to go towards more of our flexible expenses. So these are the things I like to call the fun money. This is the stuff that you want to have. This is the going out to with friends. This is eating out, right? So dining out and going to restaurants or the Uber Eats and that kind of stuff. So 50% needs, 30% wants, and 20%, which is actually a lot because a lot of other experts say it's just 10% would be a general rule of thumb. 20% goes towards your savings. So think about that. What do you want to do to set yourself up for that person you're going to be 10 years from now? So think about that. How old will you be 10 years from now? I'm not going to tell you how old I'm going to be, But I do know that there's some things I can do right now today to take care of that person that I will be in 10 years. So if you want to buy a house 10 years from now, you know, I'm graduating high school, I'm going to graduate from college, I want to work for a few years and get a house. You can actually start saving some of the income you're earning now towards that house purchase down the road. And you have time on your side that is going to help you get to those goals faster the earlier you save. It's called the time value of money. And when you look at retirement accounts and things like that, you can earn compounding interest, which means you're earning interest on top of interest, which is fantastic for your future self, right? So a couple budgeting tips I want to make sure we go through, because I would love to do a whole nother session on like how to build the budget and you track it and we fill in stuff, but I know you can do that on your own. So the most important bit here is that you have to be honest with yourself. You can't justify things. You can't pretend like you didn't spend money on that Dutch Brothers, you know, every day last week. You have to be honest with yourself. Whenever you are looking to make a bigger purchase or maybe even clothing purchase, things like that, consider buying things that are used. There's, you know, Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist, and there's what is it, Poshmark, and places you can exchange clothing and get used clothing, right? And so buying used isn't always the right answer, but it can save you a lot of money. Pay only with cash. So that's something that's pretty eye-opening to those of us who are so used to using our debit cards for everything. I mean, we have Venmo, we're just transferring money to our friends, and using cash again has that like tangible exchange for things. You're holding on to it, so you have more of a value put to it when you're using cash. And sometimes you saying, okay, I'm only allowed $25 a week for going out to eat. Take the money out, and when you run out of that money, you're done for the week, right? So cash can be a great best practice when you're trying to make cutbacks on things. The next thing, and it sounds like, I don't know if it was Alicia that said you were doing this, you're taking some of the money from your job and you are splitting the paycheck. So and I don't know if this is exactly how yours is working, but basically you can talk to most employers and you can say, okay, on payday, I want, you know, $100 to go into my checking, and then I want the rest to go into savings, or vice versa, right? I want $100 to go in savings and the rest to go in checking, so I have spending money. And the idea there is that you're paying yourself first. So you have that money automatically falling into these little buckets, and all those buckets are your bank accounts that are tied to your goals. Okay, so a great best practice, because what happens, if we're being honest, what happens at the end of the month if we wait until the end of the month to then transfer money? It's usually not there by the end of the month because we spent it on other things. So getting in the habit of automating that savings and having it pop up first. The next thing here is being able to bring food and drink from home. So if you are working, let's say you're working a part-time job, or maybe you know, you're going to and from school, and you're find yourself spending a lot of money at school for food, just bring stuff. And another best practice is, and I've had friends who actually do this, they order food out and they immediately ask for a to-go box at the beginning of the meal, and they split their meal in half, put half of it in the to-go box and eat the other half, so then they have a meal the next day. Right. And you'll be surprised that can save you like $10 right there. You have another great meal to eat the next day. And it might be better for the diet too. Um, don't shop. This one, it cracks me up, but it's so true. Don't, and you probably, and maybe you can relate to this, but don't shop when you're hungry or sad. So not a good idea to go to the grocery store if it's right before lunchtime. I've done that, and I go to the sushi counters or whatever, and I get all this extra stuff that I don't need, and all the ice cream and stuff that sounds really good. Or sad, if you just had a breakup, probably not a good idea to go shopping, right? You're gonna have that buyer's remorse a few hours later, more than likely. Use a list. So when you do go to the store, specifically the grocery store, try to write down what it is that you need. And a lot of you might not be buying your own groceries yet, but I can tell you, when you get there, use a list, because it's gonna save you tremendously. And then there's times when you just want to wait. Just say, I want to buy that, but I'm going to wait a day and see how I feel. And sometimes by giving yourself a few hours to think about the purchase, you might come back and say, yeah, I don't really need it, or I'll find a used one. or I'm going to ask around for some friends, right? And so that, again, is a great savings practice and can really cut back on your budget. And then stop unnecessary spending. I know this is like Amazon Prime, our automatic stuff that's coming out of our accounts every month for subscriptions and things like that. You might be able to cut back on those as well if you're looking to cut back. Now, again, if these things are important to you, if you love your Netflix and Hulu, I'm not saying you have to get rid of it. I'm just saying you have to build it into a plan that you're feeling okay with, where you have a plan that says, yes, I can do the things I want, but yes, I'm saving a little bit, and yes, I'm meeting all of my obligations too, right? And again, if you're not, that's that wobbly table we're talking about. Things are going to feel out of whack, and your budget will be off too. Okay, so it takes a lot of practice. Budgeting is not something that happens overnight. It's going to take a bit of time to change it, evaluate, and all of that stuff. So I want to hear from you guys one more time here, and you can just type it into the chat box or unmute. What's one thing that you're going to start today to help you get on track to your financial goals? So what's one thing that you want to work on today that's going to help you achieve that goal you set out for yourself?
Smarter spending.
Smarter spending. Awesome. And what does that mean to you when you say smarter spending? Is there a specific behavior that you want to shift?
Yeah. I think that for the like last year, I was kind of so used to like splurging whenever I wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
And then now I need to cut back on it because it's catching up to me.
Yeah. Yeah. And those are lifestyle changes sometimes too. I coached a gal a while ago, and she was making significant money at a few years ago, and created what we call lifestyle inflation. So she started to spend more because she was earning more. And then she had a huge pay cut, but continued to spend the way she was prior, and went into a tremendous amount of credit card debt over it. And so I'm not saying that's happening for you, but if you're aware of it, you're kind of already got the first step down. You see it, you know it's happening, and you're kind of like, okay, based on the goals I have, there are a few things I could cut back on. So I like that. And identify those pitfall areas for you. Like, is it food? Is it shopping? Is it social? Is it family? Is it what is it specifically for you? And that'll help you hone in on that category that you need to make those changes. Yeah. Awesome. Anybody else want to share?
I'm going to take your advice, Amy, and sit down with my budget and figure out exactly how much I need to pay on each card. I've been just kind of like throwing $500 a month on some of the high interest ones, but I'm going to be a little bit more strategic. Thank you for the advice.
You're welcome. And if I can give you some more advice, and if I can find the link, I'll send it to you. But look up a program called Vertex 42 and look for what's called a debt reduction calculator. And if you want to reach out to me one off, I can walk you through how to use that calculator. You guys, it is amazing. It follows along with what you were saying. You can use either a snowball debt reduction strategy or an avalanche strategy, which means you're paying off the highest interest first. And if you've got a little bit of extra at your budget every month that you can start tackling towards those debts, it gives you a full-blown payment plan for how to pay them off the fastest. And you can save thousands of dollars in interest by like playing around with that calculator. It's one of my most favorite tools, and it's completely free online. Yeah. So I love those goals, just making some cutbacks, just starting to build the budget, figuring out how to pay off credit card debts, other debts, maybe saving more, right? Going on trips. Those are all things that you can start today, which I love. So before I close up, and I'm happy to stay on and answer any extra questions if y'all have any, but Nevada Money Mentors is the program that I mentioned on campus. We have students who are peer mentors. So when you meet with a mentor within Money Mentors, they're a student, and they sit down with you and kind of build up your financial plan, your financial goals. And I think it's helpful to have somebody look at it, just an outsider's perspective, to say, yep, you're on the right track, or no, let's change some things, or let's be accountability partners here and get you to achieve those goals. And so you can find us at NV Money Mentors on all the social media. And then we do have other presentations just like these posted on YouTube. Alicia, you reminded me, we do have one on traveling on a budget. So if you're looking for any more stuff, I know you're going home in a way to visit family and whatnot too. But if you have want to learn some more tips about traveling on a budget or more on building credit, whatever it is, they're all out on YouTube. So feel free to peruse. And then with that, I'm just going to leave my information up here. You can email me with any questions that you have. You can email me and just whatever you need, just reach out. That we are here to help. We love doing this stuff. We love talking to you about becoming more financially savvy because we want you to achieve a lifetime of financial success. And we don't want you to be in a tangled parachute. We want you to be in charge of everything and feel like you are going to just float through life, feeling fine with your finances. So with that, Avery, I will go ahead and unshare my screen and open it up to questions. And if there are none, thank you so much for having me tonight.
Awesome. Thanks, Amy. And like Amy said, does anybody have any questions for Amy about money or anything that's on their mind? I know I have a question, but I'll save it for everybody else.
Avery, I just had a quick question. Amy, on the app that you had mentioned for tracking your finances or budgeting, I forget which, was it Mint? The Mint app?
Yeah, Mint is a very popular one because what you do with Mint is you sync your bank accounts up to your budget. So it kind of pulls the numbers in for you and then it tracks it for you. So there are pros and cons to it. It's nice if you're not one to be very hands-on and you just want to have a big picture, kind of like the macro version of it. I always suggest if you're starting out to use like a worksheet or a planner and just start tracking everything, whether you're writing it down or typing it in, because it just gives you more accountability for those purchases and kind of helps you see. So we have, if you email me at Nevada Money Mentors, I can email you our Excel budget worksheet. Again, when you're just starting out, it might look a little overwhelming at first because it's so many different categories, but you customize it to make it work for you.
Oh, great.
I had a question real quick and I posted it in the comments, but I thought of it when Teresa talked about it, but should we keep a certain percentage of money on credit cards to keep a good credit score? Because now they'll say like, oh, you need to be spending this much or have this much on there. So is it better to pay it off or just keep a little bit on the credit card?
Right. That's a good question. That's actually a question we get a lot from students. And here's my thoughts about it. So the first thing is if you carry obsessed interest. So essentially, and it looks like my internet is unstable. Can you hear me okay, Avery?
Yeah, you're good now.
Okay. If you carry the balance forward, you'll pay interest. So to me, that's interest out. It's money you're paying out of your pocket and towards a it's just going towards a credit card company, right? There are some strategies if you're looking to rebuild your credit maybe a little faster by maintaining a small balance carried forward, because information is reported to credit bureaus on different cycles. So if you constantly carry a zero amount, then not a lot of information is going to be posted to your credit. All that really means is it might just take a little bit longer for you to build credit, which I think for most young folks is totally okay. You're better to give yourself time to build credit and pay off your credit card every month than worry about building credit and having to pay interest. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah. But we get questions a lot because there are some strategies for the way it's reported and everything. But my rule of thumb is anytime you can pay off the credit card, if you have the means to do it, do it. And over time, you will build good credit. Yeah.
Okay, you answered my question. I was just going to follow up with a clarifying question.
Yeah.
But you just said, so the goal is to pay off your credit card every single month, and that will be reported to a credit card company.
Yeah, because depending on when you're making purchases and when the information's being reported to the bureaus, you could still show a balance. There's a lot of gray area in the way that credit is being reported. One thing that you might be thinking of too is the number one thing that impacts your credit score is making your payments on time. So that's like 35% of your score is making payments on time. But the second thing that they do is 30% of the score is utilization. So what that means is credit card companies want to see that you're using the card, but not also using it at a high utilization rate, meaning you want to stick to around that 30% of the limit on the card and below. So for example, if you get a credit card approved for $1,000, the general rule of thumb by financial experts is that you don't spend more than $300 on that particular card. So keeping below the 30% mark. So those are the two top things that will impact credit. And they're also looking at history, and they're going to look at the types of credit that you have also. Credit is a fun one, Avery. If you want us to come back and do one on credit, that one's always very interesting for a lot of students. And it's hard for the younger group because you really have to be 18 to start establishing credit, but it's just good info to know. Students are they're very curious about how credit works.
I wish I had a credit class my freshman year. I signed up for so many credit cards to get the free t-shirt.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would just cut up the credit card. I didn't know that you had to like call and cancel a credit card. So there were so many things I wish I knew as a freshman in college. That would have been one of them. Thank you.
And if it gives you any peace of mind, because that was when I went to college, same thing. They would give you all these promos and freebies. The legislation passed and they are no longer allowed on campuses. So that helped a little bit with that kind of predatory approach to applying for cards at such a young age because we didn't know what we were really signing up for. Yeah.
Yeah, if nobody else has any other questions, feel free to send Amy an email, and yeah, she'll get back to you. I think we had a lot of college students on here tonight too, so that was good.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
Amazing.
I think it was majority actually.
Good. Okay. That's great. Yeah. Well, thanks again, Avery, for having me. I love being part of the group and sharing a little bit of information.
Yeah, thanks for coming out, Amy.
Yeah.
And thank everybody else for coming out too. Have a good rest of your night and happy Thursday.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, see you later.